to record it for all your peers that
Oh.
so go on to CCC Confer Zoom and sign up for your account. And so this is the URL that you want to be at, and this will give you the conferencing software that you're going to need in order to complete this course. Plus, it's going to give you the conferencing software that you're going to so love to use with your students. I require that my students meet with me in at least one face-to-face conference every semester. And the first time that they meet with you, you know, they're kind of shy about it and they don't want to do it and they don't want to turn on their camera. And then the next time that you say, you know, I'm signing up for conferences, they're going to just go sign up. And because they love the one-on-one and being able to work with you. So it's a really great way to get them to use your online office hours. Okay, so I have the Zoom client actually bookmarked. And when you sign up, you'll have an account. And the first thing that you want to do is set up your profile. And the reason why you want to set up your profile is because you can put this picture in. And when you put the picture in, if something happens, if it's a slow connection and you have to stop the video, then it puts in your picture, which is far nicer for your students to see. Yeah. When I have a virtual office hour every week, and I have students come, you know, maybe 5 minutes. Some weeks I don't even have students come. And so you don't want to sit there for an hour being really careful about whether or not, you know, you're picking your nose. And so you can just turn your camera off. And then, thanks. Yeah, I needed the graphic.
You did.
You can just turn your camera off, and you can even turn your sound off. And that way you can keep working just like you would in your office on campus. And then if someone comes into your virtual office, it bings. It gives a nice little ringtone. And so then you can just immediately turn off your camera and turn on your mic and say hello to them. So it's a really, really terrific thing. Okay, so once you set up your profile, that's good. What you need to kind of understand about Zoom is that it creates a URL, and that URL becomes a meeting site. So just like Skype, only Skype is much more difficult to use. And it creates a meeting URL for you that is stable. So it's like a telephone number. So this, for instance, is my personal meeting room. I'm the only one with a Zoom account that has this personal meeting room number. And you can see it's even formatted like a telephone number. It's got the area code and then the prefix and then the 4-digit, right? So you can even kind of remember it as an area code if you wanted to. And then I have a vanity URL. So I can give people this right here, and they can meet me in Zoom as well by putting in this URL, and that will take them right to my office. Now, if I'm not in my office, they can put in that URL and nothing's going to happen. It's going to open up a Zoom client. They're going to be in there alone, right? But if I'm in my office, then they can join me. So you can actually set up meetings using Zoom. So you have your stable URL, but in addition to your stable URL, you can create many, many other office hours. So you can see this one right here has a green dot next to it, and that's because we're currently using it, right? It's the spring practicum, even though we're in fall. To set up a meeting, you would click on the big blue button that says schedule a meeting. You'd name the meeting and try to be a little more inventive than I was when I put spring practicum when we set up the virtual office. I should have just called it practicum, because we're not going to change the URL every semester, right? We just keep the same one. And so this is a recurring meeting type, right? So you could put something like office hours. And if you're going to have office hours for one class that are different from another class, you might think, oh, I need to choose different office hours or something. But the beauty of Zoom is that you can log in to this URL at any time. So I'm going to put office hours. I'm going to say that it's a recurring meeting. I always make the host video on, and I make the participants video on. Some of my colleagues do the exact opposite. They don't want to join a meeting and until they're ready. Like, they have to make sure that they look good, right? I don't really care. And then I have my participants start with their video on, because for students, having the video off means you have to tell them, turn your video on if you'd like, because you don't want to say, turn your video on. And so it's harder to get them to turn their video on. So to start with their video on means then they would have to turn it off, which is more uncomfortable. Okay, so you're more likely to get your students to meet you face-to-face if you have their video on first. For your audio options, you want to select both. So whether or not they're using a computer or using their telephone, they can have audio with it. And I do not require a meeting password. You can if you want, but I don't require it. And then I always click the button Enable Join Before Host. If you don't click this and you have office hours or a meeting like this, then they get a screen saying the meeting hasn't started in music. And that might be okay, except for if they're there for a couple of minutes, they might start to get nervous. Yeah. The great thing about a conference call like this is I wasn't the first one here. And so if your students join you or join the conference before you do, they can get to know one another, right? It's perfectly fine. So I always enable Join Before Host. And then in order to schedule the meeting, you push the next blue button, and there it is. Okay? You can use your personal meeting room, but I always just have a new URL put in. And so this right here is the URL that you would get for your new conference call. You can do something called copy the invitation. When you do that, it makes an invitation for you. You select it all, and you can copy and paste it into a Canvas page, into an announcement, into an email that you send out to your students. If you use Outlook, you can paste it into Outlook and send it as a calendar invite to people. So this is really a terrific thing to be able to copy the invitation. If you're Zooming with someone that knows Zoom and has used it a lot, then all you have to do is come in here and grab the URL and send that to them and say, you know, here's the URL for our Zoom conference. So it's a terrific tool to use, and I can't urge you enough to start using it. Talk to your friends, get them to Zoom with you so that you can get used to the onboard tools. It allows you to screen share, and it allows your students to screen share as well. So for instance, I could say, Rebecca, could you be so kind as to screen share? What I would like you to do is bring your cursor anywhere across the screen. Your menu bar will open up along the bottom, and choose the green screen share button.
It's not very exciting, I'm sorry.
It's not very exciting, but if you've ever tried to screen share with your students using another conferencing tool, you know it is much more difficult than that. So if you're working with on their work, they can show you their work that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Great. We have someone dialed in with a telephone number. I just wanted to make sure that you didn't have a question, because it put you at the center. Okay. All right. Another thing that I want to show you about Zoom is some conferencing tools allow you to only see like one person at a time, but Zoom actually allows you to do what we call the break bunch, or that packing going on, Rebecca.
Sorry, I'll mute myself.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I can hear the packing. I know that sound. Okay. Anyway. You can do the Brady Bunch view, or you can do what we call the Hollywood squares. So if you bring your cursor across the screen, all of you will see it will activate your menu bar, but it also up in the top right-hand corner allows you to see a little tile. It's 3 across and 3 down. So in quilting, we call that a 9 square or 9 patch. And if you click on that, then you have the Hollywood squares, okay? So it's a really, really great way to be able to see all of your students. And this is so easy to use that I actually had a face-to-face class, and I live on the coast in Northern California, and we're kind of geographically isolated. And on the day of my final for my face-to-face class, there was a terrible storm, and this huge tree blew down over Highway 1. And so it was like 3 hours before my class, and I got in my little car and I drove down to where the tree was knocked down, and I said to the guys that were clearing it, hey, you got to let me through. And they said, do you see the tree? And I said, no, you don't understand. I have a final. I have students giving presentations today, and they're going to freak out. They're first-year students. They're going to freak out. And they said, this tree's not going anywhere for today, maybe not even tomorrow. I said, hey, you got your trucks here somehow. And they said, these are four-wheel drive. We drove off the side of the road. I said, you got to get my car across. And they were looking at me like, how stupid are you? I'm like, I've been teaching for 22 years. I've never missed a final. So they sent me home, and I was like, okay, I have no idea what to do, right? And so I called my campus, and my campus said, look, we're canceling classes. And I said, okay, the students still have to do their final like everybody else is doing. They turn in their papers or they take a test. They can give the test online, whatever, right? But my students were doing presentations. And so I sent them out. This is a face-to-face class, first-year students, their very first quarter in school. And I said, okay, my class is canceled, but we're going to do our presentations. So we're going to do them online with a video conferencing tool. And they were all logged in and ready to go within 15 minutes, did their presentations. They loved it. They said it was the best final they ever had. They did great presentations. Even the students who were like not so hot were so excited about it that they did great presentations. So it's really a great communication tool to use with your students. I just strongly encourage you to try it out. Okay? Questions about Zoom before we move on?
I've got one. A lot of the functions that I've seen so far, I've also seen on Google Talk, which is also free. Are there any other things about Zoom that, well, justify the $100 a year?
Well, so you don't have to pay it, so that justifies
well,
it.
Okay, fair enough.
And so we used to use Google Groups and all the Google tools, and there's a lag. And so this software is just, it's a professional conferencing software. They put a lot of money into it. And so, yeah, that's what you're getting for your free money.
Okay.
Instead of a crowdsourced tool. I mean, Google is great, believe me. It's like one of the greatest things that ever happened to the internet. I mean, they created a new verb and a new noun, right? That's got to be worth something. But it's free. Right. And so Google Docs can't do what Word can do, and Google Groups can't do what Canvas and what Zoom can do. It's a really robust software. And I don't know if you've noticed, but when you get like over 10 people on one of the Google conferences, it starts to kind of lag a lot. The more people that are on it, the more it lags. And Zoom doesn't care how many people are on it.
Okay.
Doesn't care at all. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Chris, it looks like you're trying to talk, but your microphone's not activated yet, and it's usually like a little tiny problem. So if you bring your cursor across the screen, the menu bar in the bottom will open up, and there's a little caret that's right next to the mic. If you click on that little up arrow, there you go. Perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Do you know how many times I've solved that problem? Yeah, so this is what you have to watch for. You watch for the student who's like trying to talk and no one's listening to them. Yeah, exactly. And then you just tell them exactly what I said. Go to their microphone, push on the little arrow, whatever it is, it just magically fixes itself and they can talk. So, Chris.
I think you already answered my question. It sounds like this is a free tool, or is there any cost involved? I came in a little bit late.
Yeah. The private license for Zoom is $99 a year, but to tell you the truth, it might be more now because I started using Zoom when it was in beta, and so as a beta tester, they gave us a pretty cheap account. So it could be even more now. The cool thing is that the state chancellor's office thinks it's so important to have conferencing tools that they've purchased a license for all community college faculty. And so I gave the URL at the beginning of the session, and I'll send it out in an email as well. Because this is the conferencing tool you'll be using for your final presentation, unless you choose to use CCC Confer. And some people just feel really comfortable in CCC Confer. I'll tell you, we just finished 20 presentations. Well, the last one is right after you tonight, and that's the summer group. And out of the summer group, 3 people chose to use CCC Confer. And all of us were going, I don't know why we couldn't convince them to use Confer Now, because the quality of the sound, the quality of the video, and the quality of the overall product is just not what it is with Confer Now.
So the tool we're using now is called Zoom, or is it Confer Now?
Okay, so the tool is called Zoom.
Okay.
However, we have branded it as Confer Now, but it confused so many people that this weekend, I mean, no one knows except for you, they changed the name to Confer Zoom.
Okay.
But for those of us that have been using it for 2 years as Confer Now, it's going to take us a couple of weeks to get used to saying Confer Zoom.
So Confer Zoom and CCC Confer are two separate entities, two separate things?
They're two separate pieces of software. They're two separate conferencing tools. The group that manages it for all of the community colleges is called TTIP South. And so that's the technology grant that all of us use. And they do 3C Media as well.
Okay.
And so all of those people are housed in the same building, and super nice people, by the way. Oh, if you ever have a problem, well, they've put years into CCC Confer, so they'll answer those questions like this. They love CCC Confer. They will also answer your Confer Zoom questions. They're not quite as happy about it, but they will.
Do you feel that this is superior to CCC Confer?
It is so superior that it's like two different, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's my Prius sitting next to someone else's Tesla. Okay. You can choose. You can be in my little Prius, or you can take the Tesla.
I have a question.
Sure.
So if for example, I did something like this for one of my classes, as far as accessibility, could you, like CCC Confer, you can have someone from CCC Confer doing the
Captioning or
yes. So how does that work for us if we are under the Chancellor's Office package?
So that is a really, really good question. Because this is provided by the Chancellor's Office, they are working like crazy with Zoom to make it fully accessible. Right now, it is not fully accessible because the chat is not fully accessible. But you can have someone do captions. Right now, the caption grant that we're using with CCC Confer does not, the contract does not cover Zoom. And so they're working on a contract. If your campus has interpreters, so for instance, many campuses have deaf students. For every one deaf student, you have 2 interpreters on your campus because they always work in pairs. So if you have a student who is deaf and needs an interpreter, then the interpreter can Zoom with you, which they cannot do on CCC Confer. And so you can literally have your student and your interpreter at the same time. I've been in a couple of conferences where that's happened, and it's really beautiful and magical, and it's hard not to watch them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the chat is not as accessible as CCC Confer, but the actual video windows are more accessible. So it really depends on how you want to accommodate the student.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Really great question. Okay. Moving on to something else. All right, welcome to the Practicum. What I would like you to do, I know that it's really hard for all of you to kind of be the student instead of the instructor, but I think it's really important for you to all know one another because you're going to be working like crazy together. So I'm leading this today, but I'm not the instructor for this course. I am the coordinator for the program, and I have been working with this program since its inception. And so I'm here to help you, but I definitely am also here to push any baby birds out of the nest and see if you can fly. And yeah, I like doing that. So you're on your own. I'll monitor the question and answer discussion, but I'm really expecting you all to answer those questions for each other. And you know, you have to figure out at some point when you don't have an instructor anymore how you're going to answer those technical questions. So I'm here for you, but I'm not here for you. So let's start with Rebecca since she was first in, and we'll see what her packers are packing.
I know. Can you hear things in the background still? No. Yeah. Well, we're moving today. It's our third escrow, and the first two fell out. So we're hoping it's actually going to make it. And if it doesn't, we move everything back in on Monday.
Oh,
So that's what I'm doing. I'm from Southwestern College. I teach communication studies classes. Online, I teach intercultural communication.
Woohoo. So none of us are in the same pattern. So if I said, let's just go right to left, all of you would start talking because each one of you has an individual screen. So I'm going to do something really weird and call you out. I'm sorry, Claudia.
hi everyone. I'm Claudia Flores, and I teach at Maricosta and Oceanside, and I teach for the Child Development Department full time, and currently teaching a Child Family Community course, a 15-week and an 8-week course.
I just thought of one other thing I want you to say. What course management system your campus is currently using, whether or not you're one of the 85% of California community colleges moving to Canvas, and if not, what you're stuck with. Oh, so sorry. Rebecca.
We've just moved to Canvas at Southwestern College. It'll be fully implemented in fall 2018, and I'm actually in a pilot group right now. So I'm one of, I think, 7 people at Southwestern already teaching in it.
You're one of Tracy's.
Yes, I'm one of Tracy's.
Okay, great. Claudia?
We currently use Blackboard. Some people still use Moodle, but we're transitioning to Canvas.
Okay. So I have just a phone number. I don't know who this is. 559-903-4460. I think I saw that on the bathroom wall. And now I feel really bad because they have themselves muted. So, all right, we're moving on to Rodolfo.
Hi, my name is Rodolfo Jr. Jaravata Hansen. It's a long name, so I'll just go by RJ. I teach medical terminology at Crafton Hills College. I'm an adjunct professor there, and right now we're using Blackboard, but they're hoping to transition soon to Canvas.
Excellent. Chris?
Hi, my name's Chris, and I teach at 3 different schools in Orange County. I teach at Saddleback, Fullerton, and Santiago Canyon College, but only one of the schools is really invested in online teaching. So most semesters I teach online at Saddleback. I've been doing that for almost a decade using Blackboard, and they are in the midst of making a decision. It's looking like we're going to go to Canvas probably next year, but they just take forever to make decisions. And so a lot of grumbling people, you know, change is always hard for a lot of people. That's what's happening at one of my schools. But I'm all for it. I think it's clearly superior to Blackboard. So.
Yeah, Saddleback is a really interesting case. We'll see if they go.
I think they will.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for the Blackboard people. I mean, are they going out of business soon? Because it sounds like Canvas is taking over the world.
No, I don't think Blackboard is going to go out of business, and don't feel bad for them. They've done some really awful things to try to strong arm campuses. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Carl.
Hi, I am currently teaching at the Community College of Nowhere. I'm actually just a student I had recently, about a year ago, got my master's in education, and after doing an interview with a person who actually does teach online education, I just decided to go for my online education credential. I think I and one other person that has taken classes with me. I've actually seen the demographic. So I currently have no Blackboard or Canvas training, but I did create a pseudo intro to philosophy thing using a free website. I want to call it Weeks, and I was originally planning to, at least with this class, polish that. But after hearing the Canvas thing, I just have a question. Is it possible for me to use my current account to actually set up a Canvas kind of like mock introductory philosophy course if I wanted to do that as well with my ePortfolio, because I have more than 10 hours a week to me because I don't have a job. So
yeah, let's talk about that after the conference. You can't use the CCC online ed because it's all protected. Then even let faculty create a sandbox because your campus has to give you a sandbox so that they control the enrollment, right? It aligns with the registration system. But you can get a free Canvas account. And so I'll help you with that. Okay.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. So we'll try one more time with our telephone call-in. Well, welcome. Okay, so it's nice to see you, and thank you for being here. And I will walk you through a couple important things about the practicum, and then I will answer some questions for you and let you get to work. So you have 12 weeks to get this big task done. And many people approach this kind of thinking to themselves, well, I'm just going to take the homework that I did in my other 5 classes and I'm going to put it into some kind of container called a portfolio, and then I'm going to be done. And that is part of it. You are working with the stuff that you have already done. But one of the things that this program wants you to be able to do is take what you've learned in the other courses and actually apply it to new instances. So it's like when you teach a student, how to write a paragraph, and you're looking for them to write an essay. You don't want them to turn in a single paragraph. Then as the essay, you want them to write more paragraphs. So this is your opportunity to write more paragraphs. This is our course, and I'm just going to walk you through a couple of features about the course. The first is, as I've mentioned before, that there is no instructor in the course. So I am the person who toggles specific pieces open, like week 2. And I try to do that for you on Saturday morning. But I also have courses that I teach. And so occasionally I forget to toggle this open. And in Canvas, it has to be manually done. So I would like you to write down my telephone number. It is 650-787-4452. And if ever the unit doesn't open and you need it open, because many of you need to work on the weekend, and I totally get it, send me a text or call me and say, hey, Lene, you forgot to make that little gray cloud green. The little cloud here. That's how you open a Canvas module. And then I'll go ahead and toggle it open for you. We used to run this as an entirely self-paced course. So you would drop in when you were ready to go into the practicum, and you would go through the 12 weeks at your own pace. And what we found is that some people dropped out. Some people took way longer than the 12 weeks, and we kind of lost track of them. We thought they had dropped out, but then they would come back and say, oh, I didn't finish in my 12 weeks, but can I finish now? Which makes it really hard for us to plan and hire the guides for the course. And then we also found that their e-portfolios were highly inconsistent. We would have one person with a brilliant e-portfolio, and then several people with e-portfolios that clearly did not pass the @ONE standards. And so we hatched upon the plan saying, wow, we've talked about building a learning community in all of our classes, and we don't have a learning community for the practicum. So now what we do is we start you all at the same time. We introduce you to one another, and in each one of these units, we open them up 1 week at a time, so it kind of forces you to focus on something together. And we open up a discussion forum for you as well. And so you're not forced to interact in the discussion forum, but as I like to say, one of the standards is all about building a learning community and showing your collegiality. Well, what better way to show that than to actually be engaged in the discussions and helping one another in the discussions. The other important thing for you to know is that there's a critical period in week 5 where you actually meet someone who will be your mentor. These people are experienced online instructors, and almost every single one of them have been through the practicum. A few of them have been around longer than the practicum, and so they actually finished their certification with @ONE long before there was a practicum. And so but most of them are certified. They've been through this process. The guides are only paid to work with you for 5 hours. right? So your task is to make those 5 hours count and to make sure that you're not abusing the guide. So for instance, they're not going to meet with you every single week for from week 5 forward for an hour a week. That would be an abuse of their time, okay? They're also so kind and generous that they will allow you to abuse them, which is why I'm going to tell you, please don't abuse the guides. Use them for what you can. I'm here, I work full-time for At One. You can always call me and I can meet with you as well. We're here to help you be successful, and there's multiple paths for you to do that, right? So in week 5, you meet your guides because in week 6, you do a dry run of your final presentation. Now, we know in week 6 that you don't have your portfolio completed. We know that your portfolio may only be started at that point. It's just that we want to make sure that you're moving in the right direction. We don't want anyone building an entire portfolio that is completely off base, okay? And before we did this midterm piece, we did have people that had, very different concepts of what an e-portfolio was. After that, in week 8, you schedule your final presentation. And so it's really important to look for the calendar at this point because it's you'll have to work with my calendar and with at least 2 reviewers because we'll attend your presentation. And so watch for that calendar to come out and watch for communication from your guide about their calendar. So your guide will kind of initiate scheduling that. And then in week 10, we start with our final presentations. We try to get all of the presentations done in week 10, especially in the fall semester, because at the end of the fall semester is a very long break. And so no one is allowed to work during that break. Our contracts actually end. And so we're not allowed to have anyone review your courses during that break. And our contracts don't start again until the 2nd week of January. So it's super important that we get the presentations scheduled in that week and have plenty of time to go in and review your portfolio. So any kind of questions about the overall flow of the course or any of that kind of thing? Final presentation, midterm presentation, any of that? Okay, good. I'll go back to sharing then. Okay, so the next thing that you need to know is that you're going to be starting a portfolio. And you can use, Caro mentioned Wix, you can use Weebly, you can use Google Sites. But one of the things, and there's many, many ways to do it, but one of the things we'd like to point your attention to is that you have an e-portfolio that is free with Canvas. So if your campus is going to Canvas, this is a really great tool. If you click on your account, then your e-portfolio is already part of your account. Click on e-portfolios in Canvas, and you'll be able to create a new e-portfolio. I have several task portfolios here, and then I have a portfolio that I am slowly but surely migrating over. There we go. Sorry, I was getting a little background noise, so just did a little muting. Okay, so this is what my portfolio in the process of migration looks like. The important thing to know about the Canvas portfolio is that there's 3 specific spaces in your portfolio. Here is the menu of the sections. Here's the main page where you're viewing whatever you're currently on. And here are the pages within that particular section, okay? So if I move sections, I'm going to see different pages over here, right? This is a breadcrumb trail, and it tells you I'm on this portfolio, I'm in this section, and I'm on this page, okay? So if I'm in a section that only has 1 page, like my home, I'll only see 1 page over here. If I wanted to add a second page, I would click on Organize Manage Pages and then add another page. we have several different tools, tutorials to help you learn how to use the Canvas ePortfolio. And we also have, Canvas has a very good tutorial on how to use the Canvas ePortfolio. What's important to get for the Practicum is the connection between the sections, the pages, and then where your content goes, okay? I love the ePortfolio tool. I use this with my writing students. I use this with my communication students, and they really like the ePortfolio tool, and it really creates kind of a nice professional thing that is then attached to your profile. So here's the other interesting piece. Normally when we create a product for a class, that product is attached to that course. In this case, when you create a portfolio, it's attached to your account. It's attached to your profile. So your portfolio follows you in other classes that you take, so long as you stay in the CCC Online Ed instance of Canvas, okay? So that's an interesting kind of thing about the portfolio tool. The other thing that's important to know about the portfolio is that it's driven by your reflections, and those reflections are all aligned to the 10 at 1 standards. So what we're really interested in is your actual description and reflection and response to the at 1 standards. So for instance, I teach communication courses, and the bread and butter of communication courses is public speaking. So when I talk about barriers to student success in my public speaking class, they're going to be far different than barriers to success in some of my other courses, because people fear public speaking so much. So your first presentation, you're going to have a bunch of students that don't come to class. And you can handle it a couple different ways. You can just say, like, if you don't come, I'm going to drop you. But then you're just going to end up with low retention in your online class. So how do you lead up to that first presentation? How do you scaffold student success in your course? It's going to be far different in that course than it's going to be in another course. And so we want to see that you understand the barriers to student success in the state of California, on your campus, but also in your discipline. And we want to hear about the things that you're going to do to help students be successful in your particular class. So the ePortfolio is built with 2 different things. One is that rich reflection. It's the narrative that explains what you're doing in your class and how you understand the at 1 standard. And the second part of it is the artifact. And the artifact can be many, many things. So for instance, in Standard 1, the first kind of bulleted point of Standard 1 is, what barriers do your students face? Well, that's a reflection. You talk about the barriers that your students face, right? But then the next says, what course policies do you have that support student success? And so what artifact might you use to help explain where your policies are? Anyone?
Say that one more time.
What artifact do you have that that shows where your policies are? Where are your policies?
Oh, well, in syllabus.
Yeah, exactly. So Standard 1 begs for you to put your syllabus there, right? It begs for it. Now the interesting thing is, you also have Standard number 6, which says every document that you give to your students needs to be accessible. So if you put a document up to show your syllabus, then you need to make sure that that syllabus is also accessible. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to check every single standard to make sure that it's accessible.
I have a question. So the example you give of the first part being a reflection and the second part being the artifact, and the artifact would be talking about the syllabus or showing the syllabus? Talking or showing?
It would be the syllabus.
Yes,
Yeah.
But would I put the syllabus in there, or would I just tell you about what it looks like?
You'd put the syllabus in the portfolio. Yeah. So so the portfolio is kind of like this rich collection of things, right? And we call the things artifacts. Now, some of those artifacts are reflective in nature, right? So it's a reflection. The artifact is kind of a reflection. So for instance, Standard 8 asks how you collect data in your class and then how you use that data to like close the assessment loop. So if you had a test, for instance, that every single student in your class got question number 3 wrong, what would you do with question number 3? Do you keep it to stump it? That's the question that's going to tell you who the A student is, because if they can answer that one, they're the A student. Or do you change the question? Anybody?
Change the question.
I changed the question, yeah. Some people might keep it. I guess it depends on the question. So you could either, show us that quiz and say, here's how we changed the question, or here's how I changed the question, or you can write about that, right? You have kind of options for how you would show that. But for many of them, it's going to be an actual thing. You're going to show us an artifact of some kind, a document or a screenshot or something like that, right? The important thing to remember, people love screenshots. I don't know what it is about the practicum. People love screenshots, okay? And I have to tell you, if you take a screenshot of text, like here's my assignment, and people go into their Canvas course, they go into their Blackboard course, and they take a screenshot of their assignment. So when we take a screenshot, what does it turn it into? Is it still text?
No.
What is it?
Picture.
It's a picture.
It's a picture.
It's a picture, right? And we forget about it because if we're sighted, it still looks like text to me, but it's not. It's a picture, right? So you drop that into your portfolio, and someone using a screen reader, all they see is like, 852634.jpg, right? And so that means that your alt text either has to be all of the text in that image, which then makes an alt tag that's way too long, or you need to provide what's called an alternate description, which is the entire text created in another document. So if you're going to create the entire text in another document, why not just put the text of your assignment into the portfolio? That makes sense? Yeah. So the number one kind of like design flaw that we see people do is like taking pictures of text. Just take the text and put it into your portfolio. We don't have to see it in situ to know that it's an assignment. You can write, this is my assignment, and then explain the assignment. So that's the best advice I can give you, right? Don't think that you have to take a screenshot of writing. Just copy that writing and paste it into your portfolio. Okay. The discussion forums are kind of set up each week so that you can talk to each other about that. Like, what artifact would you use and how are you going to represent it in your portfolio? And the portfolios that do the best are people that like get right in there and say, wait, how am I going to represent this? And people say, well, you could do it like this, or you could do it like this. And then lo and behold, you see the whole group come to an aha moment, even though their artifacts may be very, very different. The other piece is that people think that they have to put in something that they did in their @ONE courses. So for instance, I love Michelle Pacansky-Brock. She's the one that brought VoiceThread to us. She's one of my very best friends. And we have a very close relationship. I don't use VoiceThread. My students don't like VoiceThread. Every time I've tried to use it in my course, it has failed miserably. I have other tools that they really like. So I'm not going to try to like force VoiceThread into my course. Now, if you have a visual course like art, like Michelle's, or if you've managed to make VoiceThread work for you, that's excellent. But if you haven't used VoiceThread, it's just the only artifact you have from that course, you're not obligated to use VoiceThread in your portfolio. Another place that gets people kind of hung up, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I do assessment. It's kind of like what I do. It's partly because my very first graduate degree was in writing, and writing is used as an assessment that is a gatekeeper for many, many students. And so it's very hard for them to pass the writing placement test. And when you just are a tool of the system, I guess at some point you have to say, like, how can we help people get over this, right? So I had to learn more about assessments so that I could learn more about how writing was being used as that tool of oppression. So I'm really into assessment, and I love authentic assessment, and I love the idea of creating project-based learning for your students, but it doesn't work for every course, right? But what happens in our assessment course is that people learn, you have a traditional assessment and you have a non-traditional assessment. And we offer you those ideas to get you to think outside the box. There are a ton of reasons to use a traditional assessment, and there are a ton of reasons to use a non-traditional assessment. But for some reason, a lot of people come out of that class and think that a good unit has one of each. So here's the traditional assessment I use for this, and here's the non-traditional assessment I use for this. And the two are like apples and oranges. So let me free you from that. You can use all traditional assessments as long as you have a reason for using traditional assessments. You can use all non-traditional assessments so long as you have a reason and they align with your course objectives. And you don't have to have a balance of either two or anything like that. You are free to do whatever kind of assessments you want, and you don't have to prove to me that you've got one non-traditional and one traditional. I free you of that, okay? You never have to feel that way. If you're using traditional assessments, make sure you know why you're using them, okay? So I teach writing. What's the assessment for a writing course?
Do not know.
Yeah, writing. That's what we do. You assign essays to students, right? You assign essays. There's this really big drive right now in writing to like not call them essays, right? So then you're like, okay, well, I assign papers then, okay? I don't assign essays anymore, right? Free me of the essay thing, but I still assign papers. But we can have authentic assessment with that, right? So for instance, my students love blogs. They love to write blogs. They write better blogs than they write anything else. And I can teach them argument and refutation and evidence, and they can still write a blog, right? So it doesn't have to be like as dry as some people like to make it. All right. What questions can I answer for you about the practicum or the portfolio?
Can you ask us again in a couple weeks?
I will definitely ask you again. One of the things that I always offer to the practicum group, if you want to get together informally one night to talk about something, like usually about week 2 or 3, people are like, can you use that portfolio tool in Canvas again? And I've been using it for years with my students. I'm going on 2.5 years now of using the Canvas portfolio tool with my students. And so I am happy to show you all kinds of tricks. Plus, every year of the practicum, a student shows me something new and different in the Canvas portfolio that I didn't know. So we know how to use Google Docs now to embed a document in the Canvas portfolio, which is really slick and cool. We know all kinds of things. Yeah.
So since this is a self-paced, it went from being self-paced to more structured. Is part of your certification based on every week participating at a certain time? Participating weekly, or because I'm assuming we're all going to be on at different times, unless. So I guess I'm just a little. We need a little more clarification on that.
Sure. So the only thing that's required is that you turn in. You have to do a self-assessment in week 2. You have to meet with your guide in week 5 or 6, and you have to do your final presentation. Those are the only things that are required. But the other piece that we've discovered is that people who are actively engaged and form a learning community do much better. They report, less frustration. And, we're all going to get busy. We're going to have midterms, and we're going to have times where we're like, what? I can't get this done. But working together really helps. It benefits. And the discussion forums are just a terrific way to figure out what other people are using as artifacts and to help think outside the box. Yeah. We did. we get portfolios all the time where people are, this is exactly what they did in their @ONE class. They know exactly how it aligns, and portfolio passes, right? But then we have a whole nother set of people who say that the practicum transforms them and transforms their teaching. And we should have a wisdom wall. That's another thing from Michelle Pacansky-Brock, to talk to, so that people who have been through the practicum can tell you. And actually, there's an overlap of this practicum and the summer practicum. I should have invited you to their final presentations, because this was a big group and they had amazing portfolios. I think that the more involved you are in the practicum, that the more you're going to learn from it. All of you are coming with a wealth of experience, right? How many of you have already taught an online class? Okay. And how many of you have taught an online class for more than 2 or 3 years? Okay. So yeah, there's a wealth of experience right there. Yeah. Lynn.
Can we see those portfolios somewhere, or are they accessible?
So some of them are already linked, and you'll get to, so in each one of the weeks, I've accumulated some words of wisdom for you. And I strongly suggest, that you, I'm a writing teacher. I write a lot, right? Just plow through my writing, because there is words of wisdom in there. And I really will guide you to the heart of what that standard is. And so within those, there's links to a big group of portfolios. And we're changing our website right now because OEI has changed our life and Canvas has changed our life. And so we hired a company to do it, which takes so much longer than doing it ourselves. And so it's stuck in limbo right now. I do have some links that I can give you as well, and you can look at portfolios. Plus, the link to my portfolio is in there, and it's in progress. I'm working right along with you, because I did my original portfolio in Google. And, well, actually, I did my first portfolio in Moodle. So, yes.
I have another question. When I took one of the @ONE courses, I can't think of the exact title right now, but we were given a lot of tools to incorporate into our courses, but not all of them were accessible. And so VoiceThread being one of them, because VoiceThread is accessible if you're just simply viewing it, but the comments are not accessible. So that, in my mind, one of my frustrations is that I know that 2 or 3 years down the line, the accessibility will be inherent in these products, in the browsers, in the software. But at this point in time, we're having to, code it and do all of that stuff, when, in the future, it probably won't be so labor intensive, I'm imagining.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
Yeah, I was wondering, because a lot of my artifacts from that course, namely, are not accessible. So I was just wondering why that is. Because we're expected to kind of have our courses be interactive and, incorporate all this multimedia, but yet on the flip side of that, the deterrent is to make those materials accessible. So I found myself kind of staying away from certain things because of the accessibility issue.
Yeah, well, you can imagine I took the Building Online Community with Social Media course, like, I don't know, 8 years ago. Okay, so if you think VoiceThread is inaccessible now, just try to imagine, okay? So for me, it wasn't worth the time, and then I developed other things for my classes. But you can complete your portfolio without using VoiceThread or Facebook or any of those other things. Social media is not a required component of building a learning community. There's other ways to do it. So, what you do in your teaching is what you do in your teaching. This portfolio is just about the @ONE standards, and I'm sure that you do plenty in your course about Standard 3, Standard 4, and maybe Standard 7, which is what you would use VoiceThread for. I'm sure that you have plenty of other things that you do to illustrate. communication between students, communication between you and the student, and assessment.
Okay.
And if
Not
you
exciting though.
don't, I can totally help you think of some ideas.
Great. I'll be emailing you.
Okay. Well, no, text me. It's faster.
Okay.
Okay, great. All right. Well, jump into the course, think through what you want to do. The first thing you have to do is figure out what you're going to use as that platform for your ePortfolio. We always have, I mean, as more and more people are going to Canvas, more and more people want to try Canvas. And so we'll have a big group of you, no doubt, choosing Canvas, and there'll be other people choosing Wix or Weebly or even Google Sites. Google Sites is a little buggy. I'm just telling you right now, it's a little hard to work with. So figure that out. And then we'll meet again, and we'll definitely have a Canvas evening where we can go through and walk through the Canvas tool. You don't have to start building your portfolio right this very minute. You can start mapping it out and thinking about it. I strongly suggest that no matter what you use as your portfolio tool, that you write your reflections in a document, a Google Doc or a Word doc or whatever it is that you use on your computer, because we have had outages in almost every site that we've used. We've had one person accidentally deleted their entire site on Wix. That was bad. One campus got rid of all of their, you know how they tell you that they're going to archive your course up until a certain date, and then they say they're getting rid of the courses. And a faculty site that she was using was attached to her course, and she didn't even pay attention. Like, she didn't realize that it was attached to the course, and once it was gone, it was gone. And that was 4 days before her presentation. So yeah, so write your reflections in a separate document just because. You can always copy and paste them into whatever site you're using.
But in Weebly, you can include your reflections in Weebly. Is that? I'm leaning towards Weebly because I was concerned about the access to the Canvas environment and also the fact that it could possibly disappear.
So Canvas isn't going to disappear. Yeah.
Okay.
But don't mistake me. I'm not saying
our teacher account. Are we setting it up in our teacher account?
No, you're setting it up in your @ONE account. Yeah.
In our @ONE account.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll show you how to do that if that's what you choose. Okay.
The Canvas portfolio.
Uh-huh.
And so if you wanted to show that to a potential employer, how do they see that?
Hold on one second. I want to clarify something really quickly before it goes any further and cements in someone's mind. I am not saying write your reflections in a document and then upload the document as your reflection. So
Okay.
your reflection will be in HTML or you will not pass the practicum. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So you will not submit your reflections as a document. I'm saying for your own records, put your reflections, a copy of your reflections in a document. So write your reflections in the document. That way you can spell check them and everything you want to do to them, and then copy and paste them into whatever platform you use. Okay, so don't upload your document, copy and paste the text.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll be making an HTML page. No matter what platform you're using, that reflection will be in HTML. Yeah.
It's just simply the option to save it. That's the saving option.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So, okay. I clarified. Go on with your question. Sorry.
I was just wondering if the reflections could be so the reflections my question was about Canvas, and if to share that with someone outside of the @ONE environment or in the course proper, how do they see it?
So,
how do they access it?
Yeah, so CCC Online Ed is going to be the overarching, it stands for California Community Colleges Online Education, right? So it's going to be the overarching piece that's going to go throughout the state. And we're hoping like heck that they've got it all programmed correctly so that you can keep the same account. So your portfolio is not attached to this class, your portfolio is attached to your profile. So as you move from class to class, you have the same profile. So the portfolio belongs to you, not to this course. Okay. And then the other thing is the portfolio it has a stable URL, and you can make that URL public or private, and you can share it whether it's public or private. And so you would share that URL with whoever you wanted to share it with.
And that's the teacher account that I set up to start building my course? No, that's not. Okay, that's different. All
So
right.
think of it like this. When we were all using Blackboard,
Yeah.
You didn't ever confuse your Blackboard with where do you teach, Lynn? I'm sorry.
I'm not teaching right now. I'm a librarian.
Okay, so where's your campus?
I used to use Blackboard to teach. I taught library skills courses.
Okay, but what's your campus?
Reedley.
Okay.
Reedley campus.
So you're on Reedley, and Rebecca also used Blackboard. She's on Southwestern. If you went to lunch with Rebecca and you're both on Blackboard, it would never have entered your mind that you could go into her library and log into your account, right? We knew that her Blackboard was a different Blackboard than your Blackboard.
Yes, yes.
There's something about saying we're using a common course management system now that makes everybody think it's the same Canvas. It's not. Your campus has their Canvas, my campus has my Canvas, and you can't log into my Canvas, I can't log into yours, right? So those are separate campuses. And then Canvas has their own campus, and that's where you have your Free for Teachers account.
Okay.
So that belongs to Canvas. They control it.
Yes.
Okay.
And I've already set up a Free for Teachers account. And I have, so that's where I'm creating my portfolio?
No.
Okay.
That belongs to Canvas, and we can't access it. We can't help you with it or anything else.
Okay.
A separate account that's with CCC Online Ed. That's what you log into our course, right? And so we want you to use the profile and the portfolio that's attached to your profile here with us.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Don't do it on Canvas Free for Teachers.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So when you look up at the menu bar, if it says CCC Online Ed, if it says Read the College, if it says canvas.instructure.com, okay. Yeah.
Got it.
So it's just paying attention to that URL and kind of like burning it into our brain. Believe me, I mean, we had kind of a little jump start because we got access to our Canvas shell before anyone else, right? But only a couple weeks before anybody else, because no one knew. I mean, everybody thought it was going to be Blackboard. I mean, the people that were saying it was going to be Canvas, everyone was like, you're crazy. So, we didn't have very much of a head start, right? So we were building, we had promised that whatever the course management system is, that we would have a training course up within a month.
Wow.
And, that is not very much time, right? So we had been working in Free for Teachers accounts, thinking how we would create that course, right? And then as soon as the instance came up, they were like, okay, you got that course? You got that course? And we're like, you said we'd have a month, right? And so we're working in the CCC Online Ed, we're working in the canvas.instructure.com, and all of us were so confused about where we were.
Yeah, it's a little disorienting.
Who am I? What am I?
Yeah.
And so, we totally get it, but think of it as two separate campuses. And then.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to one more.
Before you do, I think I'm going to retire a little early tonight. Thank you. Is that all right? Do you have anything more to do?
I was going to say I'm going to one more presentation, so I have to say goodnight.
Well. Okay, then maybe I'll stick for that one more presentation. Okay.
No. I'm going to another presentation. Yeah.
Okay.
One of the summer practicum people is presenting their portfolio, and so I'm going to go watch their portfolio presentation, and so I will say adieu to you, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks after you've had an opportunity to look around the class and get oriented and figure out what it is that you're doing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terrific meeting all of you. I can't wait to see your portfolios take shape. They're going to be beautiful no matter where they are. And so, yeah, deep breath.
Thank you.
Totally
Thank you.
We haven't killed a participant yet. No one has died from this.
I know. It's
Promise?
I promise.